What if everything collapsed tomorrow? Your bank account frozen. Your currency worthless. The system you trusted gone overnight. For most people in the West, this sounds like a nightmare. For millions of Russians, it sounds like a memory. After the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, Russians learned something most of us never will: the system can fail. Completely. And when it does, you're either a victim of it or you're prepared to thrive outside of it. While Americans are taught to trust the system, Russians were raised to survive without it. They don't romanticize institutions. They improvise, adapt, and rely on what they can control. Not credit scores or stock portfolios, but skills, networks, and tangible assets. And here's the shocking part: this survival mindset didn't make them paranoid or weak. It made them anti-fragile. In a world getting more volatile by the day, maybe the Russian model is exactly what we need to study next. This video isn't about politics. It's about personal sovereignty. About building wealth that survives, not just shines. So here are 7 brutal, brilliant financial lessons the Russian people learned the hard way and why they might just save your future. 1. They know collapse is real. While Americans debate over CPI numbers and stock market corrections, Russians lived through something far more devastating. In 1992, inflation hit a staggering 2,500%, and people watched their life savings turn into worthless paper overnight. Salaries couldn't keep up, pensions vanished, and the ruble became more symbolic than functional. This wasn't just economic turbulence, it was a systemic implosion. Grocery shelves were empty, banks failed, and survival depended on bartering, growing food, or leaning on family networks. It taught Russians that wealth isn't just a number on a screen, it's what you can use when the lights go out. That trauma is now cultural memory. While the West plans for retirement, Russians plan for blackouts. And while Americans chase yield, Russians chase self-sufficiency. That's not fear, that's experience turned into strategy. 2. They don't trust banks, and that's smart. In Russia, the idea of blindly trusting banks is almost laughable. During the 1990s, many Russians had their accounts frozen or emptied as the government struggled to stabilize the collapsing economy. Some saw their money evaporate overnight due to hyperinflation and sudden policy changes. As a result, Russians grew skeptical of the idea that a bank is a safe place for your wealth. Instead, they turned to physical cash, often in dollars, precious metals, tools, or durable goods. These aren't eccentric choices, they're protective measures rooted in generational experience. While Americans keep their entire financial lives online, Russians operate with a hybrid mentality, some digital, but always something physical. Because when push comes to shove, what you can hold may matter more than what you can click. 3. They think in terms of usefulness, not status. In a culture shaped by scarcity and uncertainty, practical skills matter far more than luxury brands. In Russia, being able to fix a pipe, cook from scratch, or grow potatoes is respected. Wearing flashy watches or driving luxury cars, on the other hand, might be seen as shallow or foolish. This mindset is a direct rejection of consumerism as identity. While the West pushes credit cards to buy things that impress strangers, Russians ask, "Can this help me survive?" It's not cynicism, it's a focus on utility over vanity. This doesn't mean Russians don't appreciate quality, they just value function first. If your wealth can't keep your house warm or your stomach full, then what good is it? In a collapsing system, value shifts from the symbolic to the essential. 4. They save in tangible assets. Ask an older Russian what they trust more, a stock portfolio or a pile of firewood, and you'll likely hear an answer rooted in the physical. Russians tend to see wealth in real things: property, wood, fuel, tools, and food reserves. Not because they hate finance, but because they've seen abstract assets vanish. After living through bank failures and currency collapses, the lesson became clear: own what you can control. Tangible assets aren't just investments, they're lifelines. Gold can be hidden. Land can be planted. Canned food doesn't crash overnight. This philosophy is gaining traction in the West as well, with the rise of prepping and real asset investing. But for Russians, it's not a trend, it's tradition. And it's one that quietly builds wealth immune to financial system shocks. 5. They don't rely on debt. Credit culture is not deeply embedded in Russian society the way it is in the US. While American consumers are encouraged to take on debt from an early age, many Russians grow up hearing the opposite: avoid owing money unless absolutely necessary. Mortgages exist, but they're not expected. Car loans are available, but not encouraged. And using credit cards to finance lifestyles is often viewed as irresponsible. Russians are more likely to delay purchases until they can afford them outright. This conservative approach to money fosters discipline and long-term thinking. It's a culture where living within your means is a badge of honor, not a sign of failure. And that self-control provides freedom because you don't build wealth by borrowing someone else's. 6. They expect systems to fail. Americans are raised with the expectation that things will work. That power will stay on, banks will honor withdrawals, and shelves will stay stocked. Russians don't share that assumption. They were taught by history to expect the opposite. From rolling blackouts to food shortages, Russian families learned to create buffers: wood for heat, canned goods in the pantry, extra medicine on hand. It's not fear-based, it's routine. They build redundancy into everyday life. This worldview isn't defeatist. It's empowering. When you expect failure, you prepare for it. And when you're prepared, failure loses its power over you. That's not just survival, it's resilience in its purest form. 7. They define wealth as control, not consumption. In Russian culture, wealth isn't about flashy spending. It's about sovereignty. A person who grows their own food, heats their home without debt, and stores hard assets is considered strong, not poor. That's a radically different metric than the American consumer standard. Russians understand that economic freedom comes not from what you show, but from what you can control. That means autonomy over your income, shelter, health, and family's safety. When those needs are covered, anything else is a bonus. This shift from appearance to agency is powerful. It suggests that you don't need millions to be wealthy, you need margin, resources, and independence. And in a volatile world, that might just be the most valuable wealth of all. So now you know, Russians don't fear economic collapse because they've lived through it and learned how to thrive in its ruins. Their habits weren't born in luxury, but in necessity. Yet they've created a blueprint for wealth that's more resilient than any market trend or government promise. Minimalism. Tangible assets. Silent saving. Preparedness. Discipline. These aren't just behaviors, they're shields against chaos. The real question is, are you ready to build wealth like someone who's already survived collapse? Or are you still depending on systems that could disappear tomorrow? Drop a comment and tell me, which Russian habit will you start applying first? Or simply rate this video from 0 to 10 based on how valuable it was to you. I read every comment, and your journey toward financial resilience starts now.